So today we are going to read the Great Stone Face second. I think we have started reading first and second paragraph we have read. Okay. So we will be continuing from the next paragraph. So a day before yesterday, I gave, on Saturday, I gave you introduction of the second phase of the Great Stone phase. Okay. And now the time was passing on. Okay. And with the passage of time, Ernest was also becoming old. Okay. And the neighbors, they have never found any of, you can say, ordinary and any familiar face. Okay. But you can say with that person with great stone face, to his neighbor who never suspected that he was anything more than an ordinary and familiar face. It means the persons who were living in that neighbor, they have never suspected this thing, that this person is more than just like a normal and ordinary human being. Why so? Because that person was humble also, hardworking also. That person was having so many traits, so many qualities, and moreover, that person was very much thoughtful person. But what about that old prophecy? Old prophecy means old forecasting. Okay. So they were only thinking about that old prophecy, that one day that person would come, in that village. Okay. So this wish was fulfilled or not. So in order to find out, we have to go through the text. So Akul, you read first paragraph. Afterwards, I will be explaining. Yes, Akul, read first paragraph. Where are you?
And Ernest has ceased to be obscure, unsought for, undesired, had come the fame with so many seeds. He had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. College professors and even the active men of cities came from far to see and converse with Ernest, and he received them with gentle sincerity and spoke freely with them of whatever came uppermost and lay deepest in his heart or their own. While they talked together, his face would brighten unawares and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. While Ernest had been growing old, God had granted a new poet to this earth. He too was a native of the valley, but had spent the greater part of his life in distant cities, pouring out his sweet music everywhere. Neither was the great stone face forgotten, for the poet had celebrated it in a poem. The songs of this poet found their way to Ernest. He read them after his customary toil, seated on the bench before his cottage door. As he read, he lifted his eyes to the mountain. "O great stone face," he said, "is not this man worthy to be your likeness?" The face seemed to smile, but did not answer. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away and had not only heard of Ernest, but had thought much about his character and wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand with the noble simplicity of his life. One summer day, therefore, he arrived at Ernest's door, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hand, which he read, and then, with a finger between the leaves, looked lovingly at the great stone face.
Now listen, what happened? What is given on this page? See, the days were passing and passing. With the passing of the years, okay, the white hairs were shown, okay, and it means Ernest was becoming old also. He got wrinkles on his forehead, furrows on in his cheeks, and now he has become an old man. Okay, but not in vain had he grown old, because it doesn't mean that he has grown old and all the things were in vain, waste. No, because with the passage of time, when he grew old, he got something. What was that? That he became a man of wisdom, because whatever he has become, he has learned because of his stone face man, because he used to look at this great stone face man continuously, and he has accumulated lots of wisdom, lots of sincerity, wise thoughts in his personality. Okay. And now earnest when he ceased to means when he stopped to be obscure means not well known. So when earnest really stopped not to be well known, okay, undesired, and undesired had come the fame, so with so many seek, so now you can say he had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. It means, it doesn't mean that now he has become old and he is not so famous. He was so famous that he was famous even, you can say, beyond the limits of the valley. Okay, why so? Because even the college professor, active man in the cities, they were coming from far places to converse, to talk with Ernest. Okay, and they used to, and he used to talk to them with gentle sincerity, and spoke so freely with them, okay, who were coming to them. Okay, and he was ready to lie their deepest, you can say, or lay deepest in his heart of their own. It means the person who used to come to him, you can say literate person, renowned personalities, educated persons, when they were used to come to him, so he used to attend them with generosity, with lots of kindness. Okay, and his face, the way he was talking to them, and his face was, you can say, was becoming brighten, unaware, and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. It means this personification is used to describe his quality, that which kind of person he was. Okay, now the Ernest was growing old and old. Okay, and now God had granted a new poet to the earth. Now on this earth, one new poet has come. Okay, and that person was also the native of that valley. Okay, but he had spent most of the time in other cities. Okay, and he was pouring out, he was giving his sweet and melodious music everywhere. Okay, so great stone face has not forgotten about that person. Okay, because the poet had celebrated it in a poem. Because the poet who was writing poems, he belonged to that native area. He has gone somewhere in another city to spend some time, or you can say to pour it's the beauty of his poem. And whenever he was writing poem, he has not forgotten about great stone face. He has written about his beauty, he has written about the description of great stone face in his poems also. So the songs of his poem found their way to Ernest. Okay, so when Ernest came to know about the poetry, okay, he read them after his customary toil. Customary toil means one after doing a lot of hard work. When he was sitting on a bench in front of his cottage door, he read this poem and he lifted his eyes to the mountain. So whenever he was reading that poem, he was reading and he was looking at the mountain face. So, O great stone face, he said, it is not this man worthy to be your likeness. So, at that time, Ernest said, the person who has written this poetry writer, the poet of this poem, doesn't belong any likeness to you, great stone face. Okay, because in his imagination, he was thinking about that poet. Okay, that whatever the beautiful poem he has written, and he was just imagining all the thing his mind. Okay, so the face seemed to smile. So when he was looking at great stone face and he was talking to him, so it was seeming that the great stone face is smiling, but it was not giving any answer. Okay, so afterwards, uh, Harman, you read next.
Ma'am, please tell me where to read, ma'am, because due to internet problem, I am not able to listen some things.
Now it happened that the poet.
Yes, ma'am. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest but had thought much about his character and wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand with the noble simplicity of his life. One summer day, therefore, he arrived at Ernest's door, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hand, which he read, and then, with a finger between the leaves, looked lovingly at the great stone face. "Good evening," said the poet. "Can you give a traveler a night's shelter?" "Gladly," answered Ernest. And then he added, smiling, "I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger."
Now listen, wait. Now from this passage, what we have come to know, now poet also has come to know about Ernest who was living so far away. Okay, he has listened about the character of Ernest. He has listened about the, you can say, wisdom. Okay, and he really wished to walk to that person because his wisdom, his intelligence, it was also becoming famous. Okay, and one summer day, that poet who listened about Ernest, he came specially to meet that person with lots of intelligence. He came and he was sitting at Ernest's door. Okay, and where he found that old man, he was holding a book in his hand and he was reading the book, and with a finger between the leaves like this. Okay, he kept his books and he was just looking lovingly at a great stone face. Okay, so the poet wished him good evening. Okay, and he asked him that would he be able to spend his whole night with him? Can he get a shelter there? So Ernest said gladly, yes, if you really want a shelter in my cottage, you can spend a night there. Okay, and he spoke so softly, he spoke with lot of hospitality. Okay, and so I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitable at a stranger. So at that time, great stone face, what was he thinking about Ernest, that he had never received, he has never seen such kind of hospitality to a stranger. Okay, in his whole life, he has never shown such kind of hospitality to any of the stranger. So this is a scene, you can say it is a gravestone phase. It is a poet who has come there to spend a night there. And this is Ernest who has become so old and he was spending his time by reading good books. And when he asked him that he wanted to spend his night there, one night there, so he received that person with lot of hospitality. Okay. Now afterwards, what happens? For that, I want Pari, you read the text. Yes, Pari, you read the text.
Yes, ma'am. The poet sat down beside him, and he and Ernest talked together. Never before had the poet talked with the man like Ernest, so wise and gentle and kind. Ernest, on the other hand, was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mind. As Ernest listened to the poet, he imagined that the great stone face was bending forward to listen too. He gazed into the poet's eyes. "Who are you, my gifted guest?" he asked. The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. "You have read these poems," said he. "You know me, then for I wrote them." Again and again, Ernest exclaimed the poet's features. He turned towards the great stone face, then back. He shook his head and sighed. "Why are you sad?" inquired the poet. "Because," replied Ernest, "all through life I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy, and when I read these poems, I hoped that it might be fulfilled in you." "You hoped," answered the poet, faintly smiling, "to find in me the likeness of the great stone face. I am not worthy to be its likeness."
Okay. Now, whatever we have come to know from this chapter, from this page, sorry, we came to know that poet came there. He was sitting beside Ernest, and Ernest and poet, they both were talking together. Okay. And never before, It means before that so many strangers used to come there, but the Ernest had never talked to them like that, because he was talking so wise, so gentle, like a kind person. Okay, sorry, before that not such kind of person has come there that who spoke like this, because the person, the poet who has come there, he was so wise, he was so gentle and kind, and he was talking so sweetly to Ernest. Okay, and Ernest, on the other hand, what was his reaction? He was so moved to see the living images flung out of the poet's mind. Okay, so what is the meaning of flung? Flung here means that was offering him. Okay, so Ernest was listening so patiently to the poet. Okay, and he imagined when Ernest was talking to that poet, at that time he was imagining that the great stone face was bending towards him. See, it was a still image. That was their perspective, that this image was seen in the mountain, that how mountain can bend, how that image can bend. But Ernest, when he was listening to the poet, he was imagining this thing, that the great stone face was bending towards forward to listen to it. So he was looking in poet's eyes. Okay, so he asked, who are you, my gifted guest? So the poet laid his finger on the book and said, the Ernest had been reading. Okay, so he was so surprised. You have read these poems? So this was the question asked by that poet. You know me, then for I wrote them. Okay, again and again Ernest examined the poet's feature. He turned towards the great stone face, then back. He shook his hand and sighed. So when the conversation between two persons was going on, Ernest and poet, so while doing that conversation, again and again Ernest was looking at the features of poet, and he was turning toward great stone face man, and after that he shook his head and he was having a sigh. So poet asked that, now you tell me, I'm talking to you, but why are you looking so sad? What is the reason of your sadness? Okay, so replied Ernest. What was the reply of Ernest? Because he said that all through my life, okay, I was only and only awaiting for the prophecy to be fulfilled. It means whatever the forecasting was told by his mother when he was a child, he waited all through his life of that prophecy to be fulfilled. It means when he was a child, he listened that story from his mother. He grew up, he became young man, he became young boy, then young man, and now he has become so old. So he has spent all his life to wait for that prophecy, to wait for that forecasting to be fulfilled. But when I read these poems, okay, there is still a hope that this prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Okay, so the poet answered, you hope, you still have hope. Okay, and he was smiling. Okay, and he said, to find in me the likeness of the great stone face, I'm not worthy to be its likeness. So poet says, if you think that you are finding a similarity between me and the great stone face, you are completely wrong, because I don't think that there is a similarity between me and the great stone face, because Ernest thought that his poet's face resembles great stone face. Okay. So after that, I want okay, Taranya, you read.
Yes, ma'am. And why not? Asked Ernest. He pointed to the book. Are not those thoughts worthy? You can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. I have had grand dreams, but they have been only dreams. Sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts. Why then, pure seeker of the good and true, should you hope to find me in the face of the mountain? The poet spoke sadly, and his eyes were wet with tears. So too were those of the earnest. At the hour of sunset, as had long been his custom, Ernest was to speak a group of neighbors in the open air. Together, he and the poet went to the meeting place, arm in arm. From there could be seen the great stone face. Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon his audience. He began to speak the people what was in his heart and mind. His words had power because reality his words have had power because they agreed with his thoughts, and his thoughts had reality and depth because they harmonized with the life which he had always lived. It was not mere breath that the preacher uttered. They were the words of life. A life of good deeds and selfless love was melted into them. The poet, as he listened, felt that the life and character of Ernest were a nobler strain of poverty than he had ever written. His eyes filled with tears, and he said to himself that never was there so worthy and a sage as that mild, sweet, thoughtful face, and with the glory of white hair diffused about it at a distance, but clear.
Now, up to this text, what we have come to know. So the poet was talking about this thing so sadly, and while talking this thing, his eyes got so wet with tears, and because of that, Ernest also became emotional, and his eyes were also filled with tears. Okay, so it was basically a time of sunset. Okay, and had long been in his custom, because there was a custom in their village, there was a habit in their village that at the time of evening, Ernest used to speak to a group of people in his neighbor in open air. Okay, so when Ernest went there, poet also went along with him. So he and the poet, they both went to the meeting place arm in arm, and from there they could easily see great stone face. Okay, so Ernest was looking same like Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon his kindness. So as great stone face was spreading his kindness, giving such kind of view on the villagers, so same like that, Ernest was also having a familiar look of kindness on his audience. So when he started talking to people, okay, what was in his heart, what was in his mind, what was he thinking about them? Okay, his words were having a power, because whatever he was saying, they all agreed with his thoughts, and his thoughts were having, you can say, reality. His thoughts were having depth, because whatever he was telling the all things harmonized with the life they have spent. Okay, so it was not only a mere means only breath that the preacher uttered. It means it was not only that he was a preacher there and he wanted to say something and he spoke like that, because whatever he has spoken, the words were having great value, and those words had great words of life. Okay, so the life of good deeds, because in his whole lifespan he has done only and only good deeds. Okay, and there was only selfless love, and because of that thinking, all the things were melted into them. So the when poet was listening to Ernest, he listened to him so carefully, he felt that the life and the character of Ernest, you can say, nobler strain. Nobler strain means the main thing that he can add up in his poetry, because he got content for that, because he has never listened, he has never seen about such kind of personality. So poet thought that now he wants to write something else, and he should write down about Ernest. Okay, now his eyes were filled with tears, and he said to himself that there was so worthy as a sage. Sage means, you can say, wise man. Okay, because he thought that he has never seen such an intelligent person, such a wise person in his life, because you were so mild, you were so sweet, your thoughtful face was so good, and with the glory of white hair. What is the meaning of white glory? Glory of white hair, it means you have got a lots of experience and all the things are diffused about it. All the things diffused about it means that uh, he was, you can say, complete package of wisdom, intelligence, beauty, charm, you can say strength, power, everything, every trait of the character was reflected from his, you can say, sincerity, genuinity, genuineness. All the things were reflected from all the features of his face. Okay, so he was so impressed to see the personality of Ernest. Okay, now afterwards I want Sameer Sharma, you can read. Simranpreet, you can read.
At a distance, but clearly to be seen high up in the golden light of the setting sun, appeared the great stone face, with white mists around it, like the white hairs around the brow of Ernest. At that moment, Ernest's face took on an expression so grand that the poet was moved to throw his arms up and shout, "Behold, behold, Ernest is himself the likeness of the great stone face." Then all the people looked and saw that what the poet said was true. The prophecy was fulfilled, but Ernest, having finished what he had to say, took the poet's arm and walked slowly homeward, still hoping that some wiser and better man than himself would be by appearing wearing a resemblance to the great stone face.
Now see how beautiful this chapter has been ended, because at a distance, it means from far away, but very much clearly to be seen, and there was golden light of the setting sun. It was appearing on the great stone face, and there was white mist which was around that stone, great stone face, and see, mean the mist which was covered that great stone face, this mist was looking like a white hair, okay, around the brow of Ernest. Brows here means eyebrows of Ernest. And at that moment, everybody was surprised that Ernest's face was, you can say, taking an expression so grand that a poet was not able to control on his emotion. He moved his threw his arm and start shouting, "Behold, behold, just wait and wait." You all notice that Ernest's face is same like the face of great stone face. Okay, so all the people looked at that image and they saw, yes, what was the poet saying? It was absolutely correct, because now the prophecy was fulfilled, because whatever the forecasting was done, it was fulfilled now, because now Ernest face was looking same like the great stone face. And Ernest, having finished, okay, what he had to say, whatever he wanted to deliver to all the villagers, whatever the preaching he wanted to say, after saying his dialects, he took poet's arm and he moved to home so slowly. And
Yeah.
still there was hope that some wiser and some better person would come himself, okay, and he would be appearing there, and he would be resembling that great stone face. It means Ernest was still having that hope that one wiser, one more intelligent person would be coming, but people considered himself Ernest only, that his face resembled only to the face of great stone face. Okay, so this is all about the chapter. At last, you can say, so Ernest was himself, whose face was similar, whose same was resembling to the great stone face. Now let's do true or false. All of you be attentive and type your answer in chat box. First is, Ernest's words reminded people of the wise old sayings. Hurry up, type in chat box. Ernest has become mature. Okay, so his words were also becoming so mature. So whatever he was saying, people used to like, people used to like. So definitely it was true, because Ernest's words reminded people that some sage is speaking. Sage, you can say wise person was speaking. Okay, so the next we have total stranger from far away who visited Ernest in the valley found his face familiar. It means the person who were coming far away. I just explain you, then you tell me whether it is true or it is false. Try to understand the line what is given there. The total stranger from far away, it means all the strangers who were coming from far away, who used to visit Ernest in that valley, they found that there was a similarity in their face. Yes, it was true. So the great stone face confirmed Ernest's view that the people could be worthy of his likeness. So great stone face confirmed this thing? No, it did not confirm at all. So next is, when Ernest and the poet met, they respected and admired each other equally. So you can recall that meeting of Ernest and poet. Did they give equal respect to each other? Yes, poet was giving respect to Ernest and Ernest was giving respect to poet. So its answer is true. The poet along with Ernest addressed the inhabitants of the valley. When Ernest was addressing, giving them lecture, poet also gave them lecture? No, he was only listening to him. He was only listening the words of wisdom. So its answer will be false. So only last one is left. The poet realized that Ernest's thoughts were far nobler than his own verses. It means whatever the text, whatever the poems the poet has written. So at one time he thought that the Ernest's thoughts are far better than his thoughts. So it is true. Okay, so bache, question answer discussion will be done tomorrow. Bell has gone. Okay, so we will be continuing this chapter tomorrow also. Tomorrow you have holiday afterwards, so you should be ready with the answers to be discussed in class. Okay bache, thank you and have a nice day.